So my family has literally always treated me like I'm some kind of failure or disappointment. I've never been good enough for them, especially my dad and Uncle William, who both run their own successful businesses and think anyone who doesn't is basically worthless. I work as a custodian at Target while trying to build something on the side, and they've never let me forget how disappointing that is to them. Yesterday, I got this fancy envelope in the mail. Inside was this super elegant invitation to Uncle William's 60th birthday dinner at the Ritz. I was actually kind of surprised they even invited me since they usually forget to include me in family events. But then I saw the small note scrawled at the bottom. "You're welcome to wash dishes after. Enter through kitchen door." I honestly thought it was a weird joke at first. Like maybe my cousin was messing with me. So I called my dad to ask what was up with the invitation. He answered laughing, like full-on cackling. Then he said something that made my blood boil. "You're 29 and clean toilets at Target. At least make yourself useful for once." I could hear other family members in the background all laughing. Then my sister Naomi grabbed the phone. "We told everyone you're part of the catering staff. Less humiliating than saying you're related." The phone kept getting passed around. My mom chimed in with, "Bring your mop skills." My brother added, "We'll tip you $20, double your hourly." My Aunt June said, "We're all black, so guests think you're working." They were all literally howling with laughter. I could hear Uncle William in the background saying something about how embarrassing it would be if his business associates knew his nephew was a janitor. Dad got back on the phone. "Enter through the kitchen. Don't embarrass us more than you already do." What they don't know is why I'm working at Target. 3 years ago, I had this hospitality management startup that was actually gaining traction. I'd put everything into it. My savings, 2 years of developing connections, everything. I needed a small loan to secure our first major client. Uncle William and Dad both refused to help. Fine, whatever. But then I found out later they actively told potential investors to stay away from my amateur hour operation because it would reflect badly on the family name. My company collapsed. I lost everything, had to start from scratch, and took the Target job to pay bills while I quietly rebuild. They think I just failed because I'm lazy and incompetent. They have no idea they sabotaged me. So when they all finished laughing, I just said quietly, "Enjoy your dinner. It'll be your last happy memory." Then I hung up. They probably thought it was an empty threat from their loser nephew. But here's what they don't know. 2 years ago, I was at this community event when this little girl started choking. Everyone panicked, but I jumped in and performed the Heimlich. Saved her life. Turns out she was the daughter of Marcus Bennett, the owner of the Ritz in our city. He gave me his personal number and told me if I ever needed anything, just call. I've never used it. Never wanted to take advantage of his gratitude. But yesterday, I finally made that call. I didn't ask him to cancel their reservation. I'm not that manipulative. I just told him honestly what happened with the invitation and how my family wanted me to pretend to be staff and enter through the kitchen because they were ashamed of me. I told him I needed advice on how to handle it professionally since it involved his establishment. Marcus was furious. Not at me, at them. Turns out, he takes family very seriously. He told me he would handle it and asked me to stay away from the restaurant that night. I figured he'd maybe give them bad service or something. This morning at 6 a.m., I woke up to someone pounding on my apartment door. It was my dad and Uncle William, both red-faced and practically foaming at the mouth. Behind them was my mom looking like she'd been crying. My phone had like 27 missed calls and was blowing up with texts. "The restaurant canceled. What did you tell them?" "Everyone's asking why. Dad is going to kill you. What did you do?" Apparently, the Ritz didn't just cancel their reservation. They blacklisted my entire family from the restaurant permanently. And Marcus personally called Uncle William to tell him exactly why. The cherry on top? Uncle William had invited all his important business contacts to show off. Now they're all asking questions about why the prestigious Ritz would refuse to serve him. Dad was screaming through my door that I'd ruined everything, that I needed to fix this right now. Uncle William threatened to make sure I never work anywhere decent in this city again, as if he hasn't already been doing that. I just stood there watching them melt down through my peephole. After everything they've done, after years of them treating me like garbage, after actively sabotaging my business and then mocking me for failing, they expect me to help them? I opened the door finally and just stared at them. Dad started demanding I call whoever I knew at the restaurant. Uncle William was ranting about his reputation. Mom was begging me to be the bigger person. I told them I'd think about helping them if they apologized. Not just for the invitation, for everything. For sabotaging my business. For treating me like dirt for years. For telling everyone I'm a failure when they're the ones who made sure I'd fail. They looked at me like I was speaking another language. Dad actually laughed and said, "Apologize for what? For telling the truth about your life choices?" So I closed the door in their faces and locked it. They kept pounding and yelling for about 20 minutes before security showed up and threatened to call the cops. My phone is still blowing up. Relatives I haven't heard from in years are suddenly messaging me. Half are furious, half want to know my side of the story. This is just the beginning. I've been keeping track of everything they've done to me over the years. The business sabotage is just the tip of the iceberg, and now that I know I can actually fight back, I'm done being their punching bag. Uncle William's birthday dinner might be ruined, but trust me, I'm just getting started. Update 1. Quick recap. My family invited me to my Uncle William's 60th B-Day at the Ritz, but literally told me to come wash dishes and enter through the kitchen door because they're embarrassed by my job. I called the owner of the Ritz, who I knew from saving his daughter from choking 2 years ago, and told him what happened. He canceled their reservation and blacklisted them. My family showed up raging at my apartment at 6 a.m. Okay, so after security made my dad and uncle leave, I thought I'd have at least a day to process everything. LOL, nope. Around noon, I'm sitting on my couch eating ramen and trying to ignore my phone that's still blowing up with messages. Then I hear this, weird scraping sound at my door. I look through the peephole, and my sister Naomi is literally trying to use a credit card to jimmy my lock. WTF? I yanked open the door and she practically fell into my apartment. Behind her was my brother Tyler and my cousin Gustavo, Uncle William's son. They all pushed their way in before I could stop them. Naomi started immediately with the fake sweetness. "Oh, Austin, we're not mad. We just need to understand what happened with the restaurant. We can work together to fix this. Dad is just stressed. You know how he gets." I told her to cut the bullshit. I knew exactly what they were doing, and I wasn't going to help them. Tyler got in my face then. He's always been Dad's little mini-me. He started saying how I'd never been a team player, how I was always jealous of everyone else's success, how I was trying to ruin Uncle William's special day because I couldn't handle being the family disappointment. I laughed in his face and told him I knew exactly why they were really here. They didn't care about understanding anything. They just wanted me to call Marcus and fix their precious reservation. Gustavo, who's usually the quietest one, actually surprised me by admitting I was right. He said Uncle William was in full damage control mode. Apparently, some of his business associates were already asking questions about why the Ritz would refuse to serve him. There were whispers that maybe his business wasn't doing as well as everyone thought, or that he'd done something to get blacklisted. I told them I'd consider helping if they told me the truth about something first. Then I asked, "How long have you all been mocking me to the extended family?" The way they all looked at each other told me everything. Naomi tried to play dumb, but Gustavo, surprisingly, cracked. He admitted they'd been making jokes about me for years at family gatherings I wasn't invited to. Dad and Uncle William would tell everyone how I was too proud to accept entry-level positions at their companies, how I was playing janitor to spite them. Tyler snapped at Gustavo to shut up, but he kept going. Turns out my family didn't just mock me. They actively sabotaged any connections I tried to make with our extended family. When I tried to reach out to our cousin Susan, who works in hospitality management, my field, Uncle William told her I was just trying to use her for contacts and that I was unreliable. I just stood there taking it all in. I kind of already knew most of this deep down, but hearing it confirmed was something else. Then Tyler's phone buzzed. He looked at it, then at me, then excused himself to take the call in the hallway. When he came back in, he looked smug as hell. He said Dad and Uncle William were already working on a backup plan. They'd found another venue for the party. Then he looked right at me and said, "You think you're so clever with your little restaurant connection, but you have no idea who you're messing with. Dad and Uncle William could crush you anytime they want. They've been holding back because Mom begged them not to ruin your life completely." I lost it then. I asked what the hell he was talking about. Naomi jumped in, clearly trying to do damage control. She said Tyler was exaggerating, that Dad and Uncle just occasionally discouraged people from working with me because they didn't think I was ready yet. She made it sound like they were trying to protect me from failing. But Gustavo, who was looking more uncomfortable by the second, couldn't meet my eyes. I pressed him directly and he finally admitted something that made me see red. 3 years ago, when my business was just starting to gain traction, I developed this scheduling algorithm specifically for small hospitality businesses. It was actually pretty innovative. Let businesses predict staffing needs based on multiple factors. I'd shown it to Uncle William once when he pretended to be interested in my business. Guess what? 6 months after my business collapsed, Uncle William's company launched a new, innovative scheduling system for their business clients. My system, with a few minor tweaks. He stole my work and has been profiting from it for years. I literally had to sit down. All this time I thought they just undermined my confidence and bad-mouthed me to investors. But they actually stole from me. Tyler started getting defensive, saying it wasn't stealing because my business failed anyway. And Uncle William improved the system. He said I should be grateful that at least someone in the family could execute my ideas properly. I stood up and got right in his face. I told him to get the fuck out of my apartment. All of them. Right now. Naomi tried to calm things down, saying we should focus on fixing the current problem with Uncle William's party. She suggested I call my contact at the Ritz and explain it was all a misunderstanding. And in return, they'd talk to Dad and Uncle William about acknowledging my contribution to the scheduling system. I laughed. I told them I wanted a full public apology from Dad and Uncle William at the birthday party, in front of everyone, acknowledging how they treated me and how they stole my work, plus financial compensation for my stolen intellectual property. Tyler flipped out. He called me delusional and said nobody would ever believe me over Dad and Uncle William. He said I was a loser who cleaned toilets for a living and nobody would take my word against successful businessmen. Gustavo looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Naomi kept trying to negotiate, offering smaller and smaller concessions. I stood firm. I told them those were my terms. Take it or leave it. Tyler grabbed Naomi's arm and said they were leaving. He said I'd regret trying to extort the family, and that Dad and Uncle William would make sure I never worked anywhere decent in this city. As they were walking out, Gustavo hung back. He quietly told me to watch my back because Dad and Uncle William were seriously pissed, more than he'd ever seen them. He said they were already calling in favors to try to find dirt on me. After they left, I sat down and really thought about what just happened. They didn't just mock me and sabotage my business. They stole my work. They've been profiting from my ideas while making me out to be the family failure. And now they're threatening me, trying to intimidate me, looking for dirt on me. So I made a decision. I'm done playing defense. If they want war, I'll give them war. I've spent the last 3 hours going through old emails, documents, and files from when I was developing my business. I've found emails where I clearly explain my scheduling system to Uncle William. I've found the original code and documentation. I've found everything I need to prove they stole from me. I just got a text from Gustavo warning me that Dad and Uncle William are meeting with some of their shadier business contacts tonight. Apparently, they're planning something big to put me in my place before Uncle William's rescheduled party this weekend. They think I'm just going to roll over and take it like I always have. They think they can bully and threaten me into submission. They have no idea what's coming. Update 2. So after I found out Uncle William literally stole my scheduling algorithm and has been profiting from it for years, I wasn't about to just sit around waiting for them to come after me. I got like 3 hours of sleep that night before my alarm went off at 5 a.m. I needed to work fast since Gustavo warned me they were planning something. First thing I did was call in sick to work. I never call in sick. Literally haven't missed a day in 18 months. So my manager didn't even question it. Then I sat down and made a list of everything I needed to do. This might sound weird, but making lists helps me not freak out when shit gets overwhelming. While I was making coffee, I got this super random message from my cousin Susan. Yeah, the one in hospitality management who Uncle William warned away from me years ago. She asked if we could meet for breakfast. Said she'd heard about the situation and wanted to talk. I was skeptical AF, but agreed to meet at this diner halfway between our places. When I got there, Susan was already waiting in a corner booth looking nervous. She got straight to the point and said Tyler had called her last night, asking if she knew anyone who could help book a last-minute venue for 60-plus people. Apparently, the family was scrambling to find a replacement for the Ritz. I wasn't surprised they were trying to salvage the party, but what Susan told me next actually caught me off guard. She said Uncle William and my dad were telling everyone I was having a mental health episode and had made up lies about the family to get back at them for not supporting my failed business ventures. They were basically trying to paint me as unstable and jealous. Susan said she'd never really believed the things they said about me over the years, but she'd been too afraid of being cut off from family connections to reach out. Uncle William and my dad have a lot of pull in our city's business circles, and crossing them can mean career suicide. I asked her straight up why she was talking to me now. She admitted she'd heard rumors that Uncle William's company was taking credit for innovation they didn't create, and she'd always wondered if those ideas might have come from me. She also said watching them scramble to cover their asses over the Ritz cancellation made her question everything they'd told her. We talked for like 2 hours. Susan filled me in on so much family bullshit I'd missed over the years. The most important thing she told me? Uncle William had been using his scheduling system as a major selling point to land new clients. It was literally the cornerstone of his recent business growth. As we were leaving, Susan hesitated, then told me something that made me see red all over again. When I was applying to colleges, my dad had apparently borrowed money from my college fund to cover a business shortfall. He'd promised my mom he'd replace it, but never did. That's why I'd had to take out so many student loans. Money that was supposed to be there for me had disappeared. I thanked Susan for meeting me and headed straight to my mom's house. I knew she'd be alone since Dad was probably at the office damage controlling Uncle William's birthday disaster. Mom looked surprised as hell when she opened the door. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back and asked her about the college fund. She turned white. Then she started crying and admitted it was true. Dad had taken almost $30,000 from my college fund when I was 17. He'd sworn he'd put it back with interest before I needed it, but then claimed his business had another setback and he couldn't replace it. I asked why she never told me. She said she was ashamed and afraid I'd never forgive her for letting Dad take the money. She also admitted she was afraid of standing up to him. He controlled all their finances and she'd never worked outside the home after I was born. I almost felt bad for her until she started defending him. She said he'd been under so much pressure that he was just trying to protect the family business, that he always meant to pay it back. Then she had the nerve to ask me to call my contact at the Ritz and fix things for Uncle William's party as a gesture of goodwill to start healing the family. I laughed in her face. I told her there would be no healing until Dad and Uncle William made things right. All things right. The stolen algorithm, the sabotaged business, the stolen college fund, the years of mockery, everything. She started crying harder and saying I was being cruel. That's when I played my trump card. I pulled out my phone and showed her screenshots of the texts they'd all sent mocking me, including her "bring your mop skills" comment. She tried to claim it was just teasing, but I wasn't having it. I told her I had two options for her. She could either stand with me and help make things right, or she could stand with Dad and face the consequences along with him. She asked what consequences. I told her I was going to expose everything, and the theft of my intellectual property, the stolen college fund, all of it. She begged me not to destroy the family. I told her they'd already done that themselves. As I was leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from Gustavo. He said Uncle William and my dad had booked a new venue for the birthday, some country club owned by one of their business associates. The party was still on for tomorrow night. I got in my car and drove straight to my sister Naomi's apartment. Unlike my mom, Naomi has always been directly involved in the family businesses. She's the marketing director for Dad's company and handles a lot of the client relations for both him and Uncle William. She looked pissed when she opened the door, but I pushed past her into the apartment. I told her I knew about the rescheduled party at the country club. She rolled her eyes and asked if I was there to try to ruin that too. I laid it all out for her, the stolen algorithm, the college fund, everything. I told her I had documentation proving Uncle William stole my work. I asked her if she knew, if she'd been part of it. She tried to bullshit me at first, saying I was exaggerating. But when I showed her the original emails where I'd explained the system to Uncle William years ago, side by side with the marketing materials for his system, she couldn't deny the similarities. She tried a different approach then, saying I should be flattered my ideas were good enough to use, that I should see it as a compliment, that if I'd been more business savvy, I could have made it work myself. I asked her how she'd feel if someone stole her work and then mocked her for failing. She didn't have an answer for that. Then I told her my plan. I was going to contact every single one of Uncle William's clients and show them proof that his signature system was stolen from me. I was going to post the evidence online. I was going to make sure everyone in our extended family knew how they'd treated me. Naomi's face went pale. She said I'd be ruining myself too, that nobody would want to work with someone who aired family dirty laundry publicly, that I'd be blacklisted from every business in town. I laughed and asked her what I had to lose. I was already working as a janitor because they'd made sure nobody would hire me for anything else. They'd already stolen my ideas, my money, and my reputation. Then Naomi did something I didn't expect. She started crying. Not the manipulative tears my mom used, but actual frustrated sobbing. She admitted she'd known what they did was wrong, but had been too afraid to say anything. Dad and Uncle William could be vicious to anyone who opposed them, even family. She told me about how Dad had once caused a cousin to lose his job for disagreeing with him at a family dinner. How Uncle William had spread rumors about a former employee who'd quit to work for a competitor, making her unemployable in our city. They were experts at ruining people who crossed them. I almost felt sorry for her until she tried to bargain with me. She offered to talk to Dad and Uncle William about giving me a job in the family business as compensation for my ideas, as if working for the people who stole from me was some kind of favor. I laughed again and told her that ship had sailed years ago. I didn't want a job from them. I wanted justice. As I was leaving, she grabbed my arm and actually begged me not to go to the party tomorrow. She said Dad and Uncle William had hired extra security specifically to keep me out, that they'd told people I might show up and cause a scene because I was unstable. I shook her off and told her they had no idea what causing a scene really looked like, but they were about to find out. When I got back to my apartment, I found my brother Tyler waiting outside my door. I was in no mood for another confrontation, but he blocked my way when I tried to go inside. He didn't look angry like before, though. He looked worried. He said Dad and Uncle William were planning something to neutralize me at the party if I showed up. He wouldn't tell me exactly what, but he warned me it would be really bad, and I should just stay away. I asked why he was warning me. He admitted that hearing about the stolen college fund had shaken him. He'd had his entire education paid for without loans, while I'd struggled with debt. He said it didn't seem fair. For a second I thought maybe he was coming around, but then he ruined it by adding that while what they did might have been a little shady, I was overreacting and needed to let it go before I ruined my life even more. I pushed past him into my apartment. He tried to follow, but I slammed the door in his face. He kept knocking for a while, then finally left. I spent the rest of the day finalizing my plan. I compiled all my evidence into a presentation. I contacted a few of Uncle William's clients, not to expose him yet, but to confirm details about how central his scheduling system was to their operations. Around 8 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Uncle William himself. His voice was eerily calm as he offered me a deal. $20,000 cash if I'd stop this nonsense and sign an NDA about the scheduling system. I laughed and told him his stolen algorithm was worth way more than that. He got angry then, saying nobody would believe a failure like me over him, that he had connections I couldn't even imagine, that he could make sure I never worked anywhere but Target for the rest of my life. I told him I'd see him at his party tomorrow. He actually sputtered before hanging up. 10 minutes later, my dad called. He didn't bother with the calm approach. He went straight to threats, saying he'd tell everyone about the time I got arrested in college. It was for protesting, charges were dropped, that he'd make sure my landlord found reasons to evict me, that he'd ruin any chance I ever had of rebuilding my life. I asked him about my college fund. There was dead silence on the line for, like 5 seconds. Then he said that was ancient history and I needed to man up and stop blaming others for my failures. I told him I'd see him at the party too. He hung up on me. An hour later, I got a text from Gustavo with the country club address and a warning that security would have my photo. He also sent me the guest list. It included some major business figures in our city, people who could make or break reputations with a word. Perfect. I texted Marcus from the Ritz with an update on the situation and a question. His response made me smile for the first time in days. Tomorrow night, my family thinks they're celebrating Uncle William's 60th birthday. Instead, they're walking into my carefully planned revenge. They've spent years humiliating me, stealing from me, and sabotaging me. Now it's my turn. Final update. Okay, so I woke up yesterday morning feeling weirdly calm. Like after days of being angry and stressed and planning, I just felt ready. Today was the day I'd finally stand up to my family after years of their bullshit. I had a bunch of missed calls from my mom and some texts from Naomi basically begging me not to come to the party. Tyler sent this super threatening message about how I'd regret it if I showed up. That just made me more determined. Around noon, I got a text from Gustavo saying security at the country club would be checking IDs against the guest list, and I definitely wasn't on it. He seemed genuinely worried I'd get arrested for trying to crash the party. I told him not to worry, I had a plan. He sent back just, but I didn't explain further. I spent most of the day double-checking all my evidence and making sure everything was ready. Backed up all the files to the cloud just in case someone tried to grab my phone or laptop. Around 5, I took a shower, put on my best suit, the one I bought for interviews before my family destroyed my career prospects, and headed out. But I didn't go straight to the country club. Instead, I drove to the Ritz and met with Marcus. Remember how I texted him the night before? Well, he'd agreed to help me, not just out of gratitude for saving his daughter, but because he genuinely seemed disgusted by how my family treated me. Marcus had arranged for me to ride to the country club with him and his wife, who were actually invited to Uncle William's party. Turns out Uncle William had been trying to get Marcus's business for years and thought inviting him to the birthday would help. Marcus had accepted the invitation just to help me get in. When we arrived at the country club around 7, there was indeed security checking names at the entrance. But I walked right in with Marcus and his wife like I belonged there. The security guy looked confused for a second when he saw me, but Marcus smoothly said I was his assistant and he needed me for a business presentation later. The guy just nodded and let us through. The venue was fancy, but definitely a step down from the Ritz. There were maybe 50 or 60 people there already, including most of my family. I spotted Uncle William holding court near the bar, my dad right beside him. Naomi was fluttering around talking to guests. Mom was sitting at a table, looking tense. None of them had seen me yet. Marcus suggested I wait for the right moment before making my presence known. He and his wife moved through the crowd, greeting people, while I hung back near the entrance observing. Around 7:30, Uncle William clinked his glass for attention and started giving a speech, thanking everyone for coming despite the unfortunate venue change due to a misunderstanding at the Ritz. He was in the middle of making some joke about how even the best restaurants sometimes overbook when Marcus caught my eye and nodded. That was my cue. I walked straight through the crowd toward Uncle William. People started noticing me and whispering. The room got quieter. Uncle William faltered in his speech when he saw me, his face going from confusion to anger in like 2 seconds. Dad spotted me and literally tried to intercept me, grabbing my arm as I passed. I shook him off without breaking stride. I walked right up to Uncle William, took the microphone from his hand, and thanked him for inviting me to his birthday party. The room went dead silent. Uncle William looked like he was about to have a stroke. Dad was pushing through people trying to reach us. Naomi had her hands over her mouth. Mom looked like she might faint. I smiled at the crowd and introduced myself as William's nephew. Then I said I wanted to give my uncle a special birthday tribute by sharing some family history. I connected my phone to the projector that had been set up for the party presentations. The first slide appeared. It was the original email I'd sent Uncle William 3 years ago, explaining my scheduling algorithm in detail. Next to it was an image of his company's current scheduling system interface, nearly identical to my original design. Uncle William lunged for me, but 2 things happened simultaneously. First, Gustavo stepped between us, facing his dad. Second, Marcus moved to my side, making it clear I had his support. The room was buzzing with whispers now. I continued calmly, explaining how I'd developed this system as part of my hospitality startup 3 years ago, how I'd shared it with Uncle William seeking advice, how 6 months after my business mysteriously lost all its investors and collapsed, Uncle William's company launched this innovative new system that looked remarkably like mine. Dad finally reached us and tried to grab the microphone, hissing that I was embarrassing the family with lies. I held the mic away and asked loudly if taking $30,000 from his son's college fund and never replacing it was also a lie. The look on his face was priceless. Some of his business associates were staring at him now, clearly uncomfortable. Mom had started crying at her table. Naomi was trying to distract some of the guests, but no one was paying attention to her. I clicked to the next slide. Screenshots of all their mocking texts about me washing dishes and entering through the kitchen door at the Ritz. I read a few out loud, making sure to attribute each one correctly. You're 29 and clean toilets at Target. At least make yourself useful. That was from Dad. We told everyone you're part of the catering staff. Less humiliating than saying you're related. Thanks, Naomi. People were shifting uncomfortably now. No one was eating or drinking. All eyes were on us. Some guests were actually backing toward the exits, not wanting to be part of this family implosion. Uncle William finally found his voice and started telling everyone I was mentally unstable, that I'd made all this up because I was jealous of his success. I just clicked to the next slide, side-by-side comparisons of my original code and documentation with his system's technical specs. They were practically identical. Then I played a recording of my conversation with Naomi from the day before, where she essentially admitted they knew the system was stolen from me. The color drained from her face. Tyler started yelling that recording someone without consent was illegal, but one of the guests, who happened to be a lawyer, actually corrected him, saying our state was a one-party consent state for recordings. That's when I noticed something interesting. Several of Uncle William's business associates were huddled together, looking at their phones, then at the presentation, then back at their phones. They were fact-checking me in real time, and judging by their expressions, they were confirming what I was saying. Dad tried a different approach, moving to address the guests directly. He started apologizing for the family drama and saying they should all continue enjoying the party while they dealt with me privately. But no one was moving back to their tables. They were all watching, like a car crash they couldn't look away from. I wasn't done, though. I clicked to my final slide. It showed the interface of a new hospitality management app, my app, the one I'd been secretly developing while working at Target. The one I'd used my position as a custodian to research, talking to service workers across the city about their biggest challenges and pain points. I explained that I hadn't just been cleaning toilets for the past 18 months. I'd been building something better than what Uncle William stole from me. I'd been flying under their radar deliberately, letting them think I was a failure while I worked on my real project. Then I dropped the bomb. Marcus from the Ritz wasn't just helping me get into the party. He was my first major investor. He believed in my app enough to put real money behind it. And he wasn't the only one. The look on Dad and Uncle William's faces was everything I'd hoped for. Complete shock. Their narrative about me being a loser who would never amount to anything was crumbling in front of everyone who mattered to them. That's when Uncle William snapped. He lunged at me again, this time actually shoving Gustavo aside. He got in my face, spraying spit as he called me a ungrateful little shit who would regret this. Then he grabbed the laptop from the table and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and smashed. The room collectively gasped. One of Uncle William's biggest clients, a guy named Edward who owned several hotels, immediately backed away from him with this disgusted look. Marcus stepped forward and loudly announced he was terminating all business relationships with both my uncle and father, effective immediately. Like dominoes falling, two other business associates quickly did the same. One woman literally took out her phone and emailed a cancellation notice on the spot, making sure everyone heard her dictating it. Dad looked panicked now. He grabbed Uncle William's arm, trying to calm him down, but Uncle William shoved him away too. He was completely losing it, yelling about loyalty and betrayal. Mom was trying to reach him, but Tyler was holding her back, looking stunned himself. That's when Naomi surprised everyone. She walked up to me, took a deep breath, and told the entire room that everything I'd said was true. The algorithm was mine. Dad had taken my college money. They had all treated me horribly for years. She looked exhausted, like she'd been carrying this weight for too long. Dad looked at her like she'd stabbed him in the back. Uncle William called her a traitor, but she just stood there next to me, finally choosing the truth over family loyalty. The party was obviously over. Guests were leaving in groups, talking in hushed voices. Uncle William's big celebration had turned into a public exposure of his theft and bullying. Dad's business reputation was in tatters. Their social standing was collapsing in real time. As people filed out, several of them actually approached me to exchange contact information. Two were interested in my app. One was a potential investor. Edward, the hotel owner, gave me his card and told me to call him Monday morning. Mom finally reached me, tears streaming down her face. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. She asked if I was happy now that I'd destroyed the family. I told her they'd destroyed it themselves years ago, when they decided I was worth less than everyone else. I was about to leave with Marcus when Tyler blocked my path. I thought he was going to hit me, but instead, he just asked in this confused voice why I'd never told them about the app, why I'd let them think I was a failure. I told him they'd never have believed me anyway, and after what they did to my first business, I couldn't risk them sabotaging this one too. He just stood there, looking lost. For the first time, the golden sun was seeing our family clearly, and he didn't know how to process it. Uncle William and Dad were huddled with their remaining business associates, damage controlling. They didn't even look at me as I left. Gustavo followed me out to the parking lot and actually thanked me. He said he'd been watching his dad and my dad bully people for years and had been too afraid to say anything. He looked relieved, like a weight had been lifted. On the drive back to the city, Marcus told me he'd been impressed with how I handled everything. He mentioned that the Ritz was looking for someone to oversee a new guest services initiative and asked if I'd be interested once my app was up and running. It would mean working with him directly, learning the high-end hospitality business from the inside. I told him I'd think about it. Truth is, after tonight, I've got more options than I've had in years. 3 potential investors for my app, a possible position at the Ritz, several business contacts who seemed genuinely interested in working with me. When I got home, my phone was blowing up. Texts from extended family wanting to know what happened. Messages from cousins I rarely speak to saying they'd always thought Dad and Uncle William were unfair to me. An email from Edward asking for a formal meeting about my app. And buried among them, a text from Dad. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My office, 9 a.m. I sent back just one word. No. Then I blocked his number. And Mom's. And Tyler's. And Uncle William's. Not Naomi, though. She finally did the right thing, even if it took years. And not Gustavo, who I think might actually be an ally. It's weird. For years, I felt powerless against my family. Like nothing I could do would ever change how they saw me or treated me. I let them convince me I was the problem, that I deserved their mockery and sabotage. But tonight proved they were wrong. About everything. About me. I don't know what happens next. Dad and Uncle William won't go down without a fight. They'll try to spin this, to discredit me somehow. They might even try to steal my new app idea if they can. But I'm not afraid of them anymore. I've seen behind the curtain. I know they're just bullies who can't handle being confronted with the truth. And now, so does everyone who matters to them. I spent years letting them treat me like garbage. Years believing I had to take it because they were family. Years thinking I needed their approval or support to succeed. Turns out, I just needed to stop giving a shit what they thought and build something on my own terms, without their help or their sabotage. Tonight wasn't just about revenge. It was about finally breaking free.